On behalf of Chief Executive Women, I'd like to acknowledge that we are recording on the land of the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, the traditional custodians of the land upon which we learn, work, create, and pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging.
Driving the equality agenda.
Driving the equality agenda.
Driving the equality agenda.
Are we there yet?
Welcome to Driving the Equality Agenda, a podcast where I talk to exceptional leaders to help us understand what it is that's holding us back on realising true gender equality. I'm Anne Burns and I'm extremely passionate about this subject. And for me and Chief Executive Women, it all starts with women leaders enabling women leaders. So if you are interested in learning about contemporary leadership or indeed looking to be inspired, you're going to love this. This episode, we had the delight to talk with Michele Chevalley Hedge. She's an uber nutritionist and an author and has written many books about the relationship between mental and physical resilience. What I loved most about this episode is firstly the reminders, all the stuff that you just forget about sugar, about alcohol, about how to look after myself. I also really enjoyed her reflections around leadership and that actually the humility and the care and the nourishment that we need, particularly as women leaders, is fundamental to the great leaders and how we show up. I really hope you enjoy this. You'll learn a great deal and certainly follow Michele and her immense wisdom around nutrition. Welcome, Michele Chevalley Hedge.
Thank you, Anne, for having me.
Oh, so nice. I'm so excited about this. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Like, how did you get here and what is your backstory?
Okay, how did I get here mentally or physically? Let's talk about both, right? Okay, so physically, I got here 33 years ago, the girl from New York.
Yeah.
So I was asked by IBM to attend a conference. And of course, as a New Yorker that is living in an insular world, I said, oh, am I going to go to Philadelphia or California? They go, no, Sydney, Australia. And I go, oh, okay. And so I came to Sydney, Australia 33 years ago to speak at a conference for IBM. And I fell in love with a man in a country in, I was going to say 4 days, but that's not true. I fell in love with a man in a country in 24 hours.
Wow.
I know. And I was engaged to somebody back home. I know.
That's what happens in Australia.
That is what happened in Australia. And he's still my love.
Oh,
he's still my man.
Very good.
Yeah. So I had this wonderful conference with IBM. I went back to New York, never thinking that I would ever see that man again. I was, but I was very fond of Australia and all the connections that I had made. And a little company called Microsoft was looking for the same skill set as what I was doing for IBM. So I came back to Australia and I was hired by Microsoft under a specialized skills visa, which allowed me to create new connections, new friendships, and also to be here for 3 years without having to get married. But I got married anyway, straight away.
Lovely. Yeah. So what is your backstory? How did you go from IBM Microsoft into what I think you do now, which is, it seems too little to call it nutrition, because I think you do way more than that. But what is that journey like from IBM Microsoft to nutrition?
Right. Okay. So yes, it is. And actually, I'm so grateful for all of it, Anne. I'm so grateful for it because having that strong corporate background and now being a nutritional medicine practitioner puts me in this beautiful spot of two spaces that I'm incredibly passionate about. But so after I had my babies, and I had a wonderful career with Microsoft, and because Microsoft was growing, I was able to be in all sorts of different departments with them, from marketing to distribution to retail, and I love learning. I'm a naturally curious person, so always interested in learning all of those aspects, which held me in good stead to when I went in to become a nutritional medicine practitioner. All that background of corporate and those skills helped me build my business. And now allows me to talk to people like yourself and other leaders to say, I really get your space because I used to be you. I was that person ticking those KPIs, climbing the corporate ladder, wanting to be creative and strategic, but whoa, I was all over the place with my own well-being. Anyway, had my 3 babies, and I always loved food and medicine.
Well, you're Italian. You're an Italian New Yorker, so of course.
And I come from a women, my mother's maiden name is Ciccarello. So I say I have 6 Italian mothers, and they are wise and wonderful. And I collect wise women. I don't know if I've told you that,
You
Anne.
have.
That's my thing. And people say, what do you have a collection of? Wise women.
That's
so
fantastic.
They first started with my aunts and my mom, and now extend just in my professional world and personal world. But then, so I went to study medicine, right, as a mature-aged woman who had
brave.
3 babies. And one of the first classes I took, because I thought I would go on to become a GP, was nutritional medicine. It was the very first class. And I went, and this is before a lot of science was around nutritional medicine, right? And I went, this is the perfect space for me because I really want to talk about preventative well-being. I don't want to be in a reactive space, which is where many of our doctors and medical professionals are.
Yeah.
The doctor of the future is going to be the proactive doctor.
Yeah.
Stay one step ahead of everything. So, and also because I'm a mad researcher. So the fusion of science, nutrition, medicine, and now I've layered it with positive psychology is just the perfect sweet spot for me to be in. So that's how I got here.
That's incredible. You know, when we met, I remember it distinctly. When we met, it was the fact that you understood all of those elements, but also that you understood the corporate landscape. And when we met 5 years ago, my first impression was, where the hell have you been? Why haven't we met before? But in actual fact, you very kindly gave me your book, The Happy Hormone Diet. It was just before COVID. And I wish I'd brought the book with me because you'd see it all dog-eared with stickies in and food all over it. And actually that saved me. It gave me both the physical and mental resilience that was engendered through diet and nutrition. And I actually ended up losing 30 kilograms.
That is absolutely magnificent. That makes me feel so purposeful. But, Anne, you know, the other part of that equation, and you and I talked about, is weight loss is simply a wonderful part of that. But all the other components that come with that, the vibrancy, the energy, the mental clarity, the lifting of the brain fog, it is truly what I call nutritional transformation. And we look at ways to transform as leaders and high-performing humans through so many different lenses, right? We pull into the toolkit all these different things, which we should. But very few people look through the lens of nutritional transformation, and that's the foundation that can build everything else. But also, you and I have touched on this before. It wasn't just the weight that fell off.
Yeah.
It was the improvement of sleep.
Yeah.
It was the improvement of self-esteem.
Oh, for sure.
Confidence, all of those things that go with this. So I always say people think that a nutritionist is always going to talk about weight. But I say weight is just a number, a measurement of gravity. It does not measure your vitality, your energy, your spark.
Yeah.
All of those things encompasses true well-being.
Exactly right. We often talk about resilience, and when we were planning the podcast, I said I really want to explore the idea and the interrelationship between physical resilience and mental resilience. And you are a world-renowned expert in that. Tell us about that relationship and that interdependence.
Love that question. You cannot pull apart mental resilience and physical resilience.
Yeah.
They go together completely. So let me take a little bit of a deeper dive on that. When we think about physical resilience, we immediately think about energy. We think about a robust immune system. We think about a strong, healthy body. And we get all of those things by having the nutrients and the nourishment to create that. It is that same nutrients and nourishment that creates our mental resilience by dampening down inflammation in the brain, helping with anxiety, helping with serotonin levels with regard to depression, helping with cognitive function. It's the same nutrients physically as it is mentally. And so that's one cross there. But we also know with physical resilience comes confidence and self-like. And that also helps with our mental resilience. But you cannot pull the two apart. When I talk about mental resilience, people immediately think, okay, is she talking about cognitive function or is she talking about anxiety, depression, and emotional function? I'm talking about both. So when we talk about brain health, I like to talk about the cognitive side of things as well as the emotional side with anxiety, depression, and mood disorders. But again, we know that it's all linked.
So tell me the relationship, and I find this fascinating, the relationship between your cognitive, your brain function, and your gut health. Explain to me how that works and what we can do to improve that relationship.
Well, we're only at the tip of the iceberg, and with research in this space, which anecdotally we have seen for years, as a nutritional medicine practitioner, we see this constantly in our practice, right? But the research is coming out hard and fast on this because we have a world of people with anxiety, depression, and mood disorders, but we also have a world with cognitive dysfunction. So early onset Alzheimer's, poor memory, early onset dementia, ADHD, in the cognitive space. So we have the two worlds colliding. What we do know from evidence-based research, randomized controlled trials, is that when we clean up our gut is the very place where our serotonin, our happy hormone, is created. So 10 years ago or 15 years ago, if you were seeing a psychologist or a counselor or talking to a doctor about anxiety, depression, and mood disorders, often people would point to their head and say serotonin. Now we go, no, serotonin is created here.
In the gut.
So just by cleaning up what we're eating, and I don't mean deprivation because I don't like anybody eating like a bird. That's ridiculous, right? I want people to nourish themselves. So when you clean up your gut health, you're doing two things. One, you're giving yourself the opportunity to maximize your serotonin levels. Two, our gut is the seat of our immune system. COVID isn't going anywhere. We need to be building up our own immune systems. But also from a cognitive perspective, Anne, this links on to something else that we've talked about before. From a cognitive perspective, when we are eating better, when we are eating good quality proteins that break down to tryptophan, that is a precursor to melatonin, our sleep hormone. When we are eating better, we are sleeping better. Both our gut, our sleep, all of that plays into our cognitive function. In fact, we know when we're eating poor quality food and when we're sleeping inconsistently without good quality, it shrinks our hippocampus, the very part of our brain where we consolidate memory and learning, and that we need for strategic thinking, creative thinking, all of the things that we want as high-performing humans, right?
Wow. Do you know, I am addicted to sleep. I am absolutely addicted to sleep. I love it. And certainly I spend a lot of time making sure that I create a space where I can spend time asleep. And I have to say, your teaching around that serotonin comes from the gut and the relationship between the brain and sleep and your gut, that for me has been revolutionary. And as a leader, that resilience, we often talk about the mental resilience, but actually that mental resilience comes from that interrelationship.
100%, Anne, 1,000%. I say the foundation of all of that is sleep, nutrition, exercise, and the other part of the Wellbeing Foundation is your stress hacking abilities.
Yeah, tell me about that. How do we stress hack?
Stress hack. So this is a perfect segue. So when we look at the pillars of our well-being, protecting our sleep, nutrition, and exercise.
Okay, sleep, nutrition, exercise. Got it.
Right? But the fourth pillar to that, Anne, is the ability to stress hack. But we get the ability to stress hack is if we eat well, we tend to sleep well. If we sleep well, then we tend to have the desire or the ability to have energy to exercise. They're all interrelated, right? Then you layer on, so if you got those three right, then we tend to have settled cortisol levels. We tend to have the ability to have clearer thinking so that we have the ability to stress hack. So those are the pillars. And if you look at high-performing people or people that you consider that have the greatest well-being, you will notice they protect those four things with their life.
Oh, true.
They do it humbly and they do it consistently. They do not make any explanation for why they are just subtly avoiding the chips and they've ordered an extra bowl of broccoli. They do it quietly and humbly. They don't announce it to the table. They don't tell people, oh, I'm leaving this meeting early tonight or this cocktail party early because I have to get to bed and protect my 8 hours. Quietly and humbly, but start to observe the people that have the greatest well-being. That's what they do. Okay, let's get into a little bit of the nuts and bolts around stress.
Do.
Okay, so we talked about this, and I always feel that this is a big aha moment for particularly women. I don't like to talk too much about weight, but I'm going to tie weight into this. But it's all interlinked, right? When we talk about people that aren't protecting their way to build their stress hacking opportunities, and they're letting their stress fly. So I mean that woman that sets the alarm goes off, the cup of coffee gets bolted down, the laundry goes on, they have road rage getting to the spin class, they're on high alert. By the time they get to the boardroom table at 10 o'clock in the morning, their cortisol levels are jacked up around their ears. So what happens is their adrenal glands start from the time they wake up, right?
Right.
We know this woman. We used to be this woman, right?
For sure.
Okay, so now come 6 o'clock at night, those adrenals are still on until you knock back 2 gin and tonics, then consume the cheese platter, and then go, okay, where are the jelly snakes, right? I know, because I used to be this human vacuum, right? So what's happening there is people think that cortisol and glucose is all about food. So they think, oh, high insulin, weight gain, that's about poor food choices. No. Let's pretend you are just a mad stress head, but you eat really well.
Right.
But that mad stress head, adrenals are going. The adrenal pumps out cortisol. The cortisol pumps out glucose. That glucose is spinning around, and our cells are going, finally, you do this to me day after day, week after week. You little stress head, even though you're eating right, you're pumping all this cortisol through my body. I'm going to make you weight loss resistant. I'm going to upset the apple cart with your insulin, despite you being a good eater. Can you believe that you can become have insulin dysfunction, glucose dysfunction, just because of being a stress head? Okay, park that there. That's one. So we know insulin, cortisol can be disrupted from food. Now we know it can be from stress. Let's go to the third reason why we can become weight loss resistant.
I'm nervous about the third reason.
Or inflamed. No, you got this one. Oh. The third reason is when people sleep poorly.
Okay.
Or are not good sleepers.
Yeah.
So we know just from inconsistent sleep and poor sleep, we can become that type of person who eats like a bird but has glucose dysfunction just from poor sleep and starts inflammation in the body. In fact, in 2019, The Lancet, one of our largest peer-reviewed medical journals, came out with night shift working a carcinogenic activity.
Night shift working, a carcinogenic activity because of the lack of sleep.
Correct.
Right.
Now, should that not be the headlines for every person that works and is a stress head all of us, right, who are working, hitting our KPIs, thinking strategically, pivoting through COVID, and have turned on our stress that affects our sleep, that now has carcinogenic activities. So we're talking about sleep and its relationship to cancer. These are things that as corporate leaders, we need to be doing not only for ourselves professionally, but personally, and also extending to our teams. If we want productivity and happy employees, we need to be having these conversations.
100%. Let's talk about two of the devils, right? Let's talk about sugar and alcohol. So I have weaned myself off one, and I do like a glass of bubbles, I have to say. What do you think is the right balance? What is your view on sugar and alcohol? And your new book actually talks about Eat, Drink, and Still Shrink, which I loved the title of that.
Okay, great. Well, first of all, I'm often introduced as the nutritionist that likes a little bit of wine and coffee, which I love, right? Because that makes me real. And also makes people in the audience go, oh, okay, well, whoa, she's not...
We're not going to get a lecture here.
Never a lecture, because I'm Italian. I love food, right? And I love food, and I love what food can bring to a conversation, to well-being, and all of those things. But let's talk specifically about that. So my first book, Anne, I don't know if you even know about this, my very first book was Beating Sugar Addictions for Dummies by Wiley Publishing. So they had come to me as being this mad researcher in the area of sugar, which I am. I'm still a nutritional researching nut. So sugar. I'm all about having natural sugars. So the sugar in our milk, the sugar in our blueberries, the sugar in our fruit, all of that. It's the added sugar. If there was one thing, and just one, and there's a million topics that we can talk about nutrition, but if there was one thing that I would advise people to do is become sugar aware. Not no sugar, because that's silly and extreme, but sugar aware. And the fact that our healthiest looking things like healthy blueberry smoothies or healthy muesli bars or healthy vitamin waters contain a hell of a lot of added sugar, right? Surprising that so much so that people go, are you kidding me? So much so that when I'm doing corporate presentations, I actually have to go real time into nutritional panels for people to see that a sneaky little gin and tonic has 6 teaspoons of added sugar, that a healthy muesli bar has 8 teaspoons of added sugar.
Did you just say 80 or 18?
No, usually a healthy muesli bar is usually about 8. But a healthy smoothie, ones that we buy that are grab and go because we're too busy as senior executives to feed ourselves, which was me at Microsoft and possibly you, right? A healthy smoothie, 22 teaspoons of sugar. Now, stay with me, everybody that's listening to this, because this is really important. The World Health Organization, not little old Michele Chevalley Hedge, but the top researchers, the top doctors, the top nutritional psychiatrists say to optimize our mental well-being and our physical well-being, we should be having maximum 6 teaspoons of added sugar in our diet daily.
Okay, hang on, let me make sure I've got that right. So a smoothie's got 20 and we're supposed to be having 6.
Correct. A yogurt, you've seen me do this presentation.
I know, the yogurt.
A healthy yogurt can have 7 to 8 teaspoons. So the average Australian, probably people listening to this podcast, would have probably about, healthy people that are listening to this, about 30 teaspoons of sugar a day. So people are going, no. But let me ask you this. How many people would pick up a chai latte? That chai latte, 8 to 10 teaspoons of hidden sugars.
Then you're done, right? That's your daily done.
Right. So, but I want to ask everybody this. Take a pause and have a think about this. You pick up a chai latte. You pick up a healthy banana muffin that is the size of a doorstop now, right? But has 6 teaspoons of sugar. Throughout the day, you have a healthy muesli bar. You might pick up a healthy yogurt. By the end of the day, you've had 30 teaspoons of sugar on board. Talk about tired but wired. Talked about jacked up blood glucose. But would anybody listening to this podcast take a pharmaceutical drug 6 times more than they were supposed to on a daily basis, week after week, month after month?
No, of course not.
That's what most of us are doing.
Wow.
And what we don't realize is that physically, some of us will gain weight. Some of us will actually age from not eating well because added sugar actually creates aging. But what we don't see is what's going on the inside. And that is changes in our hormones, changes in our glucose, changes in oxidation, what I call rusting on the inside, changes in inflammation. Inflammation, you take any disease process, whether it's a cognitive disease process like Alzheimer's and dementia, or cardiovascular disease process, or rheumatoid arthritis, osteoarthritis, you name any disease process, Anne. The underlying pathology is inflammation. The number one driver of inflammation is high sugar diets, bitter trans fats, but high sugar is like a flame on the inside.
Wow. Sugar is bad.
Sugar's bad. Sugar's bad.
Got it.
So I always say, okay, we all are busy people, and some of us are even running our families as well as our businesses. So just be sugar aware.
Yeah.
Okay, alcohol. I am Cure Cancer's ambassador, and I always go by Cure Cancer's guidelines and research. And so I love a cheeky glass of Pinot. You like bubbles. I like a Pinot Noir, but I like a bit of bubbles as well. And I'm all about nourishment and not about deprivation. So what I say about alcohol is I go with the current research, right? We know that excess alcohol, big links to cancer, right? Excess anything, big links to cancer. Those people aren't productive, vital, and energized, right? They're dealing with big things. I would say 3 nights a week, 4 nights a week, 1 or 2 glasses of wine or a bubble, or a clean spirit versus a cocktail. Cocktail's high sugar, right?
Yeah.
Like high. Yeah. So not only are you dealing with the processing of alcohol out of your liver, but you're dealing with the processing of sugar. So a clean spirit, a bit of bubbles. But I also really, really like the body or the liver particularly, which is a seat of where our hormones are, to have 2 or 3 nights of no alcohol.
Yeah.
Lots of brassica vegetables, green leafy vegetables, broccoli, cauliflower. It's a natural sweet for our liver, right? So we don't need supplements to naturally cleanse our liver. When we're eating real whole foods that are full of fiber and nutrients, it's a natural cleanse. So I always say, okay, I'm going to have my cheeky Pinot 1 or 2 nights a week. Sometimes, Anne, I even do things excessively, right? So sometimes I might have.
Sometimes you go wild.
Sometimes I go crazy because I'm a New Yorker, right? And I can, right? And I'm normal. And this leads to, something that you've asked me about, which, is one of my big take-home messages for anybody listening is #no guilt.
Yeah.
That is such a big thing, particularly for women to come to terms with. If we have a crazy night where we drink too much or we have too much sugar, we have 2 pieces of Pavlova, half a bottle of wine, and had a couple of glasses of bubbles along
Sounds
the
like
way.
a great night to me.
Right? So we have those nights. What I say to people is, please, when you're doing that, be present. Connect to the people you love. Make sure you're in the moment and you're going, gee, this Pavlova is rock star good. This is so good. Do not beat yourself up and miss the moments of the joy of that.
Yeah.
And then this is what we're good at as women. The next day we go, oh, I feel so bad. I'm so guilty. I'm going to do a spin class for an hour. I'm going to starve myself, only have water. And then by 1 o'clock in the afternoon, you are wanting to chew your fingernails off and hoover down any bit of food that's in your path.
That
right?
never happens.
And then it's the vicious circle of self-sabotage. I dislike myself. I don't like it. No. No guilt. Be in the moment. Enjoy it, right? And the other thing as women, and I know there's men listening to this podcast, but women are really good at this. We're great at nourishing everyone around us.
Except ourselves.
Oh, we are so great at nourishing our parents, our children, our dogs, our cats, our colleagues. But I'll ask everyone listening to this right now, when was the last time you really nourished you?
Yeah.
Because, Anne, you know, you've tasted this.
Yeah.
When you start to really nourish yourself, it has the butterfly effect on everyone around you.
Absolutely.
Exponentially. We are so much greater in our ability to give our good hearts, our good minds to everyone around us.
That's fantastic. Michele, you are such a delight. Honestly, you're such a delight. When we think about the bigger picture here with women in leadership, as I do with all my guests, I ask them for one piece of advice to everyone listening, everyone watching. What is your one piece of advice, your one for the road?
That's hard for me as a New Yorker that likes to talk, Anne. But my one for the road is definitely this. Small nudges lead to big changes. It doesn't have to be that big of a jump, because that is what often people think is, well, I want to do this thing healthy, but, it's so far reaching. No. It's just tiny, small hacks that we can do day after day. And all of a sudden we start to do these tiny nudges and we go, well, I wasn't hungry. That tasted good. Whew, I start to feel a little bit better. I'm going to look at myself a little bit differently today in the mirror. Or, hey, I feel like people on the road are a little bit nicer. Yeah. And all of a sudden it starts to have this whole uphill spiral. Yeah. And all of a sudden you're doing this thing called healthy, or you're doing this thing called low sugar, and it just starts to spiral, and you feel better about you. It's not the world being better to you. It's about you being better to you and giving that out to the world.
Michele, it is so lovely to have you with us. I have learned even more this morning, and I thought I knew everything. I've read all your books, I've followed you, but that was hugely insightful. Thank you. I think the discussion about physical and mental resilience is so important for women leaders. So we can't thank you enough for spending your time with us today. Thank you.
And thank you. It has been my pleasure completely.
You've been listening to Driving the Equality Agenda, a podcast brought to you by Chief Executive Women. If you want to learn more about our leadership development programs, please check us out at cw.org.au. We love to hear your feedback and your comments, so please follow us on LinkedIn so you don't miss a single episode. Use the hashtag Driving the Equality Agenda and check out our show notes. And thank you to our producer, Sarah Linton from Cobox. She always does a great job with her and her team. Thank you for listening.